if I schedule my day that I've got 10 things to do and I've only scheduled time for 10 things to do, and if I don't get them all done, I'm crammed with time. We've all been there.
Yeah.
But the truth is, we need to leave a space of time for the idea that things don't always go your way, won't go your way. If they do great, wonderful. But otherwise, you will be at such a high level of stress and also feel like such a failure when I didn't allow for a percentage of that time to say, I need some headroom. And so I feel like we need to do headroom with our life and our schedule and our relationships. Welcome to The Principal Thing. We're Wes and Ashley Miller, where you'll learn wisdom you can live. Well, hello, and welcome to The Principal Thing for this Principal Thing with Wes Miller and
Ashley Miller.
We're here.
Yeah, we are.
What are we looking at today?
Oh, well, we're sticking in Proverbs chapter 1, and we're going to talk about verse 8. So Proverbs chapter 1, verse 8, and I'll go ahead and read the whole thing for you. I know last week we took part A of it, but this week we're going to take part B of it because there's just a whole lot in there. I really got a lot out of last week, though. Yeah, I've been listening to that for those instructions all week. So
Good.
Let me go ahead and read the rest of it. So again, Proverbs chapter 1, verse 8 says, "My son, hear the instruction of your father, and do not forsake the law of your mother."
Yeah, there's some heavy stuff in that very one verse of 8. And so we're looking at today's point, and I want to just narrow it down. Wisdom has foundational boundaries or precepts. And what I want to go in right behind it is say, don't invent the wheel. So he says, do not forsake the law that your mother gave you. So in other words, when we talked last week, we talked about we're hearing something fresh. We got to hear what wisdom's saying right now, right there. But when he says don't neglect something, it's something you already know as a true reality and a boundary. The law is a boundary. You know, when I drive down the highway and it says 65 miles an hour is a speed limit, if I cross into 66, I've crossed the boundary. If I go to 75, I'm way past the boundary because now I'm 10 miles beyond the boundary. So what are the laws there? The laws are there to ensure safety, they're to ensure protection. They're actually there to ensure progress and success. But when we don't listen to the law or we neglect it, we're going to hinder wisdom's flow in our life. If you're really going to get wisdom and apply it to your life so that it can help your life, you can't throw out the established law that you already know. And see, that's what this verse was saying. It's not something you don't know. This is there. It's already been set and you realize it. And I think it's interesting because he talks about the difference between the father giving the instruction, but the mother's law. Sometimes we think we can get by with more with mom. Sometimes we perceive that maybe she's going to be the weak link or the weak spot. And so instruction sounds stern, but now the law's like, maybe I don't really need to keep that. I don't need to pay attention to that. And wisdom says, do not disregard precepts or boundaries that's already been preset in life. You already know certain things are right, certain things are wrong. You shouldn't have to have a vote every day on whether to do those things. Those things are there.
That's good.
Yeah.
That's very good.
What do you feel like?
Well, I feel like in that line there, we've talked to you all before about doing evaluations on our life and how did that work? How did that not work? Well, let's think about back to times of our lives that maybe had failed. Where did I go wrong? Did I break a law there? Are there established things that I know right from wrong? Are there established laws, principles, ways that are right and wrong? And I knew them and I failed. And why did I fail? Why did I not want to listen to that law or boundary?
Right.
And that can help you right your wrongs. That can help you say, okay, that wasn't wisdom.
Grow from that.
I can grow from that. And so I think we all do it, but I think even going back and reevaluating where we went wrong, where we got off track, what I did, and what law did I break, whether it's in the natural or the spiritual, that helped bring about those consequences, because I think that can bring revelation. Revelation brings transformation.
One that a lot of us know is the law of gravity. I mean, the law of gravity, whether you want to believe it or not, or whether you want to neglect it or not, it's there and it's real. And if you go against the law of gravity, you will find out that it really is there, whether you like it or not, believe it or not. And that's really like the way it is. I was telling you again the other day, talking about speed limit laws and things like that. I said, it's interesting that almost all, and I hate to say this, but I had so many speeding tickets when I was a teenager. And I got speeding tickets so many times, but almost all the tickets I've ever gotten in my life was from 17 to 25 years old. because when I was 17, I knew everything. I didn't need to be told by anybody. I didn't need to care about laws. I neglected the laws. But what happens is every time that I would speed, I would get pulled over, and every time I got pulled over, it got worse and worse and worse, to the point that everything was in jeopardy because I was neglecting the law that was already there. I didn't establish the law. I don't even have to make the law. I just have to respect the law. And he said, don't forsake the law of your mother. In other words, you can't just forget about that or ignore it. You can't start putting aside the boundaries that God has there for your life for protection and think somehow that I'm going to get wisdom beyond that.
Yeah. I hear the word rebellion.
Oh,
At that age,
totally.
we're in rebellion.
Pride.
Pride,
Yeah.
rebellion.
Know it all.
And I think about even nowadays when you're talking about speed limits and things like that. I'm in a hurry.
Yeah.
So we know, it's not wisdom to have to be in a hurry all the time.
Yeah.
Ever, really.
It really is.
But-
and honestly, we need to create pockets of time because things don't always go our way.
Tell us about, I remember you gave an incredible concept that you got from your Pastor Shannon Wooten, but it was an incredible concept, and you talked about headroom or...
Yeah. Well, I had taught on headroom before because in music, there's such thing as a headroom. So in other words, if I'm playing something at 10 watts of power, I don't want to just have 10 watts of power. I want 100 watts of power so that there's 90 watts headroom to my 10 watts of power. Whenever you have more height to whatever you're trying to do, you will have a cleaner sound when it comes to sound. So what that looks like in a schedule, in other words, if I schedule my day that I've got 10 things to do and I've only scheduled time for 10 things to do, and if I don't get them all done, I'm crammed with time. We've all been there.
Yeah.
But the truth is we need to leave a space of time for the idea that things don't always go your way, won't go your way. If they do great, wonderful. But otherwise, you will be at such a high level of stress and also feel like such a failure when I didn't allow for a percentage of that time to say, I need some headroom. And so I feel like we need to do headroom with our life and our schedule and our relationships. Like, yeah, we want everybody to function perfect all day long. But have I created a place, and with Christianity, we would call it a grace, for they didn't get that. Like, I got to grace people with some headroom. Like, if I'm expecting everything out of them perfect and they don't do it, I'll be disappointed. I might even get offended, and I might end up hindering my relationship with God and with them. And so I have to allow space. I have to allow grace. I have to give myself that and others. And what we have to do with this whole idea of the law, when we take it and we begin to apply it, we do have to have grace for it. Like, okay, I have screwed up. I do screw up. I will screw up. And people screw up. But the truth is, if I'm growing and learning and really listening to instruction and not forsaking the law, you're going to find you're going to have a whole lot less of that activity going on that's taking you backwards or going in a negative direction.
Yeah. I was working with a lady the other day, and I told her, I said, because she'd find herself perpetually in situations where she would say yes and she would give in. And then you'd find that wisdom was nowhere in these decision makings. And I said, we're going to exercise the muscle of saying no.
Yeah.
And so there is an instruction, there is a law in saying wisdom is it's okay to say no.
Yeah. And I mean, we've had to do that a lot in recent days because rest is so important, and we want to give honor to God that said that we should rest
the law.
a day a week. We should do that. And that's the law. If I neglect that, it will not go well.
Yeah.
And what I've had to do is come to the point of saying, when I neglect that, I'm dishonoring God, and I don't want to dishonor God in the idea of thinking I'm working for him.
Yeah.
Like, so what I was finding myself doing is on that extra day, I'm doing all this stuff for God as if he's expecting that. And so therefore I wasn't embracing the law that was already there. I was forsaking it to go do my own thing. It doesn't have to sound like a bad idea, but it can be a bad idea when you forsake wisdom.
Yeah.
And I want to say this, and maybe I'll say it over and over and over as we do all these podcasts, but the truth is there's only two options, wisdom and foolish. If I did not use wisdom, guess what? I did something foolish. And if you say, well, I don't know that was really wisdom what I did, then you're saying I did something foolish. You really have to own up to that so that you say, I don't want to keep being foolish, because really there isn't a middle option. There's no middleman between wisdom and foolish. Like, and so if it's not wisdom, it's foolish.
Yeah.
And so that's why we've got to realize there is some things that I can hear today that's going to help me, but there's things I already know that I'm not allowing the full impact of those things. And I just wish, because honestly, when I got all those speeding tickets, I finally got the point of a revelation. And what that revelation was, my car insurance went up sky high. My car payment was already huge, and my insurance went up as high as my car payment monthly. And that was way before they started doing insurance monthly. And so it got my attention real quick.
Yeah.
Not to mention, I'm going to lose that ability to have even a privilege to drive around. So it finally got my attention that maybe I should pay attention to the speed limit. Maybe I should not forsake my mother's law. Maybe I should, instead of neglecting it, I should start applying it.
Yeah. I love what we're doing here because it's really making, and that's what the Word of God is there for. Pastor teaches us when you read the Bible, you need to look for Jesus in the Bible and you need to look for yourself in
Yeah.
the Bible.
You're
I'm
right.
seeing myself all over here. Do not forsake the law of your mother. And we've talked to you before about praying and asking God for wisdom. How do you do that in this particular verse? It's, Lord, teach me how to walk within your established boundaries in this relationship,
Yes.
in this career, in this travel, in this whatever situation. There are established boundaries for every situation and every scenario that you're in. You may not always recognize them, but ask the Lord, Lord, show me those established boundaries and help me to walk in those.
And here's the thing. I mean, I said, don't reinvent the wheel. Don't invent the wheel. Let me tell you what the will is. It's the Bible. It's Genesis to Revelation. Like, the truth is, wisdom is already in a book, and laws are already there. All we have to do is access that. And a lot of people, it can be that I'm ignorant of the scriptures, or maybe not, but that's something that you can tackle. We read a day at a time. We eat a bite at a time. You can read through the whole entire Bible in 89 hours. But the truth is, you can get through it, and you can apply it, and you can study it, and find the word. I don't need to reinvent a law. There's already a lot of laws that God set in motion. Many of them we'll find in the Bible. But the truth is, if you live life, you've learned there's certain laws in this world, both by authorities and also self-governing laws. And we cannot neglect the thing that we know. Today's practical, because honestly, we've got the point. We get the point. We get the point. What do I do practically today? We have to accept and align with the parameters that's already preset. In other words, you don't got to create nothing. You don't have to use your thinking space to come up with the boundaries. The boundaries are there. One of the greatest things that we'll ever learn in life is that boundaries are good.
Yes.
God has boundaries for us, and it keeps us from falling off the map. It keeps us on the course that we need. We need boundaries. And though I feel like the boundaries are minimal compared to the freedom that we have, but to neglect the few boundaries that are there, in the idea of I want to be free spirited, or I'm going to go do my own thing, they will not end well. I always like to say, God put Adam and Eve in the entire garden. It was a huge place, all kinds of trees they could partake of, all kinds of things they could do. He said, your one boundary is this one tree. Like, I think, look at all the freedom they had. And yet the one boundary they neglected, they forsook. And that's what brought sin into this world. We can never minimize the things that are preset in life. So apply what you already know. Apply what you already have. Most of us, we could say, man, I screwed up on things I already knew. I can't plead ignorance because I knew better. But then what we say, I knew better, and I still did.
That's that evaluation piece.
Yeah. And man, we feel with you right now, because both of us have said,
absolutely.
we knew better, and we still did it.
Absolutely.
So that's today's practical. Let's apply that.
Yes. So accept and align the perimeters that are already preset in our lives. Ask God, open my ears. Let me hear your instructions so that I can figure out, so that I can truly understand what your established boundaries are for these situations. Amen. Okay. Well, we are so happy to have you. We thank you for joining us. If you're not following us, make sure you follow us on all the different platforms, and you have a great week, and we love you. If this encouraged you, share it with somebody and come back for another dose of practical truth from Proverbs.
Until then, take your principal step and keep growing.